In Unit 7 of 504, we're basically trying to wrap up some of the big issues that we've discussed, and we'll come back to policymaking. And it's a fascinating unit because, it's like a capstone unit. It brings together, or keystone unit, it brings together all these different issues and the facets that we've discussed in the previous unit into one. The issue here is to go beyond understanding that policymaking is so, very messy and complex. And it's also to try to understand what the debates are about policymaking in the country. Is it a policy cycle? So you have the reading, for instance, by Atlas, Catherine Atlas, that discusses the different steps in the policymaking. The identification of a problem. What is the problem, the issue? The analysis of the problem or the issue, the policy analysis, the rationalization of the issue. And then the policy instruments that you would use to actually address the issue or change the issue, between what is and what should be, or trying to change the nature of a problem, right? Between what is and what makers, policy actors would like to see. And the process obviously involves consultation, coordination, decision by elected officials, implementation, and evaluation. And some of the work that is in the unit that I'm asking you to read really comes back to one of the issues that we've already touched upon a little bit, which is the role of politicians, elected officials. What do they do? What choice and how do they rely on policymaking to make those decisions? So it's quite interesting because in this course and in the MPA, you're taught to make decisions or to bring together policy proposals that are really built and emerging out of data, well-researched and data-driven policy analysis. You have to know the details. Yet, in this unit, I am making you read colleagues who are critical of this approach. In other words, we are asking you to think about the limits of such a process. The rational analysis of policy decision-making. What is it a good thing that we base policy on rational thinking and data? Some colleagues that the Lindblom and Wood hosts here are quite interesting because they're a bit critical of this. They will open your mind to different views. And obviously, the whole issue of politicization that we have already seen in the class comes back. But it takes very specific forms, which I'm going to list to you very quickly. One of them is observed in the Canadian government, but not just in the Canadian government. It's observed by the literature, by social scientific studies, in Europe, in the European system, across European countries, and even in the United States. We live next to the elephant. So one of these issues is the concentration of authority in the hands of very few decision makers inside governments, above and beyond what institutions allow. The growing number of staffers, here we're talking about political staffers, above and beyond the bureaucracy or any other actors in the policy process. In other words, ideologically driven staffers working for very specific interests. The insistence that government, prime minister's offices should control political communication. And that is not the role of the bureaucracy anymore. Traditionally, it was. The distanciation of bureaucratic institutions, in other words, line departments within the federal, within the provincial government, from decision making. They are still there, but they are maybe less influential, says the literature. There is a distance that has been created there. And the growing influence, which is in a way the competitive parallelism to the lack of influence of the bureaucracy, with the increasing influence then of lobbyists and interest groups in the decision making of specific governments. So these are the different points in a way that I want you to think about for this unit. Aucoin comes back, right? We've already read a piece by him on the politicization of the system. Now we read another piece on the different interactions and the key players and the murky part of this, transformation. Who dominates the system? What are the different push and pull, the tug of wars that we can observe here? The increasing intergovernmental within Canada tug of war and international Canada and the rest of the world tug of war, and their, in a way, mutual or parallel influence on policy making in the country, which obviously make these different games, policy making games, very complex. And then you have a very interesting article by Backwis and Juillet on horizontal management. In other words, provincial governments kind of aligning policies and working together towards implementing similar standards or similar policies across the country. Horizontal management challenges, obviously, to traditional policy making. So all in all, I'm not making your life much more, easy. I'm actually making the thinking very difficult here, because I'm talking to you about something that has become quite complex. But I want to make sure that you understand all of the different facets of that complexity so that you can, picture it very clearly in your head. The role of policy makers is not just between bureaucrats and elected officials, lobbyists and staffers. It is also involving citizens and obviously all of the different groups, private, non-profit, and their lobbies that are influencing government in making decisions. So it's quite fascinating to think through these issues. And we think about the role of, non-governmental organizations, think tanks, in decision-making, but also the role of citizens. So I think it's a really interesting unit. It basically brings all of the things that we've discussed in bits and pieces together and bring them all together before we start discussing new issues or different issues. And I invite you to obviously address the question in Unit 7 and then engage with the class in the discussion forum. And obviously I will be there and provide some comments as well. Thank you very much.